All right, we're back and rocking on the 80 Camaro. Motor's all set into place. Our header showed up. Got some other parts to put on it. First time the sun's been out in like 3 months. There's no wind. Got the door open for the first time this year. So we're going to continue to put the motor together. First thing we need to do is get the transmission dipstick mounted, get a look at how we can run the tranny lines. That's one of the things that we don't have at this time. Also carburetor. So this is a Edelbrock square bore intake. Carburetor we're putting on is a Rochester, which is a spread bore carburetor, so we're gonna have to put a spacer on. I have that, we'll get that put on so that everything matches up and flows right. We got the temp sensor. We're going to put in the oil sending unit. A lot of just basic stuff. So here we go. So the transmission dipstick tube that I got is one of these low car type. It's flexible, and I just kind of got to figure out where we want to mount it so it's not in the way of the headers and whatnot. We use these on most of our rigs because they're kind of handy. You can put it wherever you want to. I like to just left it in there when we mounted everything, but that didn't work out the way we wanted it to, so I'm thinking we'll probably just bring this up and mount it here quickly. Pushes down in there. Usually you bring it up and just mount it on the firewall someplace. Jack this up and take this strut bar out of here. You can see it's been modified on this side for headers already, and it's got a bend in it. So I don't know what structural purpose it serves, but we're going to take it out on both sides and get our headers in, and then if later on we find out that this really is a vital part on the front of it, we'll put it back in there. If that was the case, if that's something that is made to like stiffen the front chassis or something for performance, I'd probably make it out of something a little better than a piece of angle iron. That's what GM did, so we're gonna get it out of there. I wonder I got slivers in my hands all the time. Header bolts, 1-inch ones. You can get 3/4 or you can get 1 inch. Got a 7/16 head on them, which makes them really nice for putting in. For those of us that don't underappreciate headers. I had to take this back out because I just got done telling Mrs. Landshark I've never gotten a header to go in on the driver's side from above. You always got to do it from below. And then lo and behold, this one just fell right into place like it was meant to be down there. So you know what that means. None of the bolts will start. But we're gonna give it a shot. You almost pinched my finger. Here we go. Hey.
No.
We're gonna put this header in. Put a chair in the sun and I lose you for the summer.
Yep.
My intent was to put the temp sensor in there, but being a knucklehead, I ordered the temp sensor for an 80 Camaro with a 350 in it. This is not an 80 block. This is an older block, so I have to get a different temp sensor. No big hill to climb since we're still waiting on stuff, but we're running the stock gauge. It has a temp sensor in it. The stock dash does, but it doesn't have an oil gauge. All it has is an idiot light, so we are going to run a mechanical oil gauge. So we're going to try and get that hooked up right now. That'll hook into this little stand here below the distributor, and since we got the dash out anyway, they'll make it easier just to punch a hole and put our copper line through. We're waiting on a fitting for the power steering. return line. We kicked around the idea of cleaning that tank out, but when Mortski sold me this, I know he'd put some fresh fuel in it, so we're just gonna put a fuel filter on and see what happens. Now that I got the header on, I can get down and mess around with the starter.
Sorry.
I think Mrs. Landshark is reverse flushing the radiator right now, and there's
a little brown.
there was no antifreeze in there, Greta. That is all just rust, and Jake's helping her by the looks of it. It's running clean now, so we'll be able to put that in. We got the hoses, got tranny lines coming. It's just a never-ending go. We got some really nice valve covers for this, but we're not. Mrs. Landshark is reluctant to put them on because I have a tendency to scratch stuff when it's new. This will be the second time you've seen this fuel pump installed. This time I'm going to try it a little different. I'm not going to use that little pick I was talking about. I'm going to stick my big fat finger up in there. Well, we'll put spark plugs in. Have 7 out of 8 wires for some reason, so we'll have to do some hunting there. Running R45 TS's, that's my plug of choice for a small block Chevy. Higher up on the heat range, especially with the older motors, kind of makes everything happy. Gapping them at 35. Some people go a little more gap than that. So we're in the process of running the oil pressure gauge line. Got a hole there, put a grommet in it so we don't have any rub throughs. Got the hoodinkus that the oil line goes into, nut and ferrule. So we haven't really decided where we're going to mount this gauge yet, so we're just going to run the copper out to the gauge, and then once we get the dash all put back together, we will
which one were you in?
This one, the west one of them two. Then we will that's enough, babe.
Okay.
Then we'll either hook a oil pressure gauge to it in there, or we'll forget about it. When we start it up, we'll pump the cabin full of oil, so either way we'll know we have oil pressure. So we're gonna hook this one in now and finish tightening all that stuff down. I think we're just going to cut the tube off, folks. So what I found here is like an E8, which is exactly the size of the end of that ferrule, and I'm hoping it'll push it back on there far enough to make me happy. That ferrule should slide up and down that tube all nice and solid. Got the carburetor back. Had that down. Jensen Auto. He's loves working on Rochester carburetors, and he said this one should work pretty good. This is a square bore intake. The Rochester is a spread bore, so I had to get a conversion plate, which is right here. And one thing about Rochesters, they have a long bolt that goes down into the intake to hold it down. The converter that I got, the adapter that I got, came with these little studs, so we're going to get them set up to put the carburetor on it. We got to put temp sensor in, a lot of little things to finish up. Little fun fact that if you watched the episode where we were putting it in, you saw me underneath there putting these motor mounts on the frame, and this one right here, that guy inside this cradle has a really nice Carlisle 15mm swivel head socket still attached to it that I absolutely could not get off, so we donated it to the cause. So it added another $10 in value to this automobile. it'll probably hang there forever. We messed around longer than we should have trying to get that socket off of that nut. So that will be an integral part of this vehicle. You see, we got the mechanical oil pressure sensor plumbed in there, ready to go. We got some parts for the power steering. We've got a lot of little parts that have come in. Let's get after it. So as I said, this Mr. Gasket adapter has a spot to put this long stud on here, but I don't want it to stick too far up through the carburetor. So I've been kind of looking at how it goes, how much headroom there's going to be, because I have to be able to, this has got to be flush to fit into the, down against the manifold. This sits down against the manifold, and then when you put the nut on here, it draws it up just like these ones. That's why there's nuts on here, just to hold it in. But so we're gonna have to do some modifying here. So kind of got it where I want to, and I'm gonna take the old wheel of death. I'm gonna make sure they're both the same. Hack these off of here, and then I'm gonna score them so they don't come off. And we'll put them up underneath there, and we'll get that carburetor mounted. So those will sit right down in there, and we'll be able to tighten it down on top with this guy. Jensenized Rochester. I'm a big Holly guy. I'm not much of a Rochester fan. Never have been. I'm gonna give this one a try. I don't like it. You can always switch. Something I'm more used to. See, the bad part with these bolts up through the adapter, I'll show you here, is the bolt falls down like that. Having gotten that installed now, we're talking 3/4 of an inch here, so I might have to make some adjustments on some of my throttle adapters. The temp sender, I'm gonna have to move. I think I'm gonna put it in here, because the hole in the head is not the same size as the temp sensor that I got that goes with the dash for the Camaro. So I didn't want to change out sensors and then run into an issue where the ohms reading on it wasn't right or something. Hopefully I can get the power steering and stuff, bracket, or not bracket, pump and whatnot on here. I think it's really going to be happy with the headers, so there might be some fabricating going on there. What is life if you're not fabricating something? Got a plug to plug this hole down here so we don't have fluides busting all over the place. That'll be fun to put in with them headers on there. Have you ever forgot to put in a plug? Especially like on a cooling system or in an oil galley. Oh man, that is for some fun entertainment when you crank things up, start filling. Whoofty. Nothing more exciting than trying to figure out where in the hell is that coming from. I don't know if you watched the episode where me and Mrs. Landshark put the 350 in here, but we had a little what the blank moment when the ram on the cherry picker decided to let go more than I wanted it to. It wasn't listening to what I was telling it. And what we found was the pin that goes through the, there's a pin that goes through the shaft that releases it, and that got a little bend in it, and when I cranked on it, it bent just enough to let that thing go, and boy was that entertaining. So We spent a little time fixing up the radiator support. Hopefully we got her pretty darn close. You drop a heavy motor like that on something that might have detrimental effect. I thought Mrs. L was gonna kill me, but she hasn't yet, so. So this is where we're gonna put the temp sensor. We'll run a wire to it from the gauge. I was just gonna try and find a smaller temp sensor, and then I got to thinking to myself that this has got a gauge in it, but it's a single wire gauge, so that means it runs off a certain amount of resistance. And another one with a 3/8 pipe on it might not have had the same resistance, and I didn't really feel like messing around trying to figure one out. The old combination standard metric wrench. I always say this, but remember when you're dealing with pipe thread to not over tighten it, because the threads are tapered and you don't want to crack the housing that you're putting it into by wedging it in there. So that'll go right there. That is ugly, but it'll work. I didn't really like this brass fitting on here, so I'm probably going to put a fuel filter in here. Not sure what the tank is like. I like to run a hard line if I can from the fuel pump up. I don't want this to run as close to the block as I can here. I'm basically just using a tubing tool to get my bends in it. And I should be able to curve the hose up to there. I'll put this one on this end. We figured the snow is finally gone, so we got the old 4.9 and the 6.8 out of storage. Gonna go over a little bit on both of them, make sure they're roadworthy so we can start heading to some cruise nights and some car shows and get this bad boy running, get it on the road. We're gonna drive it the way it is for a while, get the 3+3 in and finish it. That's been a long project, so I'm hoping this is gonna run behind the alternator bracket. So that should come off just like this. Correct. Man, I should have painted that. Now I have to. Here's some useless knowledge for you. These are called CT5s, this bracket that spaces out your long bolt on your alternator to the head. Put the cap and rotor on. The way that rotor's pointing kind of makes me think that maybe the distributor is 180 degrees off. We shall find out when we try and start it. Thinking I might want to put my fuel filter down here as it comes into the fuel pump, just until I know that there's nothing in that gas tank. Yeah, I know, I hate these things, but I'm going to use it because I can see in it. Well, we got this guy all purdied up. Alright, well, I shortened that up a little bit. Like I said, I don't like these plastic fuel filters, but at least it'll let me see that what kind of trash is in that pump or in that tank in case I need to do something there. I know Mortsky didn't he didn't think it was too horrible. I don't know if he looked in it or not, and I haven't looked in it yet, so we'll just run that as a fail-safe, because there is a filter in here. So once I know that everything's running good, I'll take this out and just put a piece of hose in. Alright, got an old alternator we dug up. I never realized how many pulleys I had until I started going through them trying to decide which was short and which was a long pump. I think I've got that figured out now. So I'm probably going to be guessing a lot at belts on this thing, so I like to try and keep it about midway, because that will probably be another day. So a flange nut on that. Okay, so we'll run the wire for that. Eventually get our pulleys on. I think I'm going to try and take a look at this power steering next to see what kind of debacle that's going to be. As per my normal arrangement, now I've decided that I need new power steering hose. I got the return one, but pressure one, stupid to put it in there with that like that, so still haven't narrowed down quite how to mount this with the headers in here. We're gonna get things cleaned up, take a look at it, get it drained out, see if we can figure out if there's a way to do this without having to buy a bracket. Maybe, I don't know. Put headers on there, so that usually messes up things. Give us a chance to clean this up at least. Yeah, really slacking in detail stuff on this go around. Usually we got that all done before we start putting things together. Not so much. It's gotta be original. It's got one of them goofy bow tie clamps where you put it on there and squeeze it with an end nipper. I just bought one of them setups. Maybe that's how we'll replace it. We're gonna go old school. Now we'll go with the hose clamp. It's so much easier. Alright, so we're gonna cut this hose off of this, do a little cleaning up on this. We'll start putting it in. So my brake cleaner of choice is 3M when it's on sale, Max when it's on sale, CRC when it's on sale, whatever when it's on sale. And I got this pulley all painted and realized it's got a little hoodinkus in it right there. Let's see if we can bend that out. Damn, I hate it when that happens. Well, that ain't gonna work. It rubs on everything on there. So we go on a pulley hunt. Sweet! I had one. Glad I got that other one all painted up before I tried it. You know what that means, the old restoration in a can, yep. Now we wait. We sit and look at the 49 for a while. We're gonna put aluminum rims back on it, I think. Can't seem to make up our mind which way we like it. The aluminum rims make it look more hot roddy. This looks pretty old school this way, but I don't know. Over the winter it puked out a lot of antifreeze and transmission fluid. I don't know why the radiator would build up pressure sitting in a shed. I don't know if it's just a difference in temperatures or what, but it looked like it was pushing it out through the overflow, not the overflow, the thermostat housing area. So we'll have to dive in there before we go back to the 50s and take a look at that. It's always something fun. So we're putting the power steering pump on, and the original bracket mounted along the head here, but with the headers I think that might make a difference. I'm not sure. I'm going to try and take a look at it and see, because some small block heads there's an extra bolt hole on the bolt pattern, and I used that to put this stud in that was in the original deal. This water pump is through and through, so I had to find a bolt to go through there that ended up being like a 2.5 inch bolt. So I'm gonna have to go through and reach up behind here and put a nut on it to tighten, because that's where it adjusts at, is on this bolt. Some water pumps, this hole is threaded, so you can just put a bolt in there, but in this particular water pump it's not. And I can't remember, there's a year break that on what water pump works for stuff like that. Anyway, it's not a big deal. We'll just put a nut behind it and tighten it up a little bit, see how that works. So we're gonna put the power steering pump in now and try and start that nut from the back. I know that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be awesome. I ended up having to order a power steering pressure hose for this, because the one I took off wasn't gonna cut it for me. So we're waiting on that, but not a big deal. So this guy is gonna go through like that. I think we kind of had problems with power steering on Mrs. L's 68 too. Just not a good way to do this, I'm betting. Nope. Almost looks like I could use a little longer bolt, wouldn't hurt. I'm gonna try a little Dr. Tranny assembly goo. Just put that on my finger. See if I can get it started, then we're in fine shape. Gear wrench always goes on wrong. You got a 50% chance every time you put it on. Nice, that worked out good. Somebody made the suggestion to use that on your fuel pump push rod too, to hold it up in the block against the cam. That would work out real nice. Next time I will try that. So when I took this apart, I was thinking it was like this. Well, just slide it up there and see. So this would be the adjuster side of that. Sits off of that stud. We might have to make some corrections here. And then this part's gonna come up and sit like this here, maybe not. And there's a bolt that goes through here. Goes into that. Ideally, if you had that right there, that'd be peachy. My guess is that sat out a lot further when it was on the manifold than where it's at now. Eyeballing the belt stuff, it didn't look like it was going to line up the way I wanted it to. So, once again, I still don't know if it's gonna. I did see somebody reusing one of these. I looked Did a little Google search, see if I could figure out how other folks did this. But they were going through this stud here. So I think I'm going to put a nut on this so that I can hold the header in also. Nut and a lock washer. I'm going to thread that in there. I'm going to bring this guy up and see if it mates up with that. If not, we can just switch it around again. So the stud's got a built-in nut on it, and then I added a nut to it so that we can still lock the header in place and not have a, well, prolong how long it takes for it to start leaking, I guess is how we should say that. And I put a lock and washer on there too. The one I looked at on Google just had a big bushing coming out here holding that. So I think I'm accomplishing the same thing, maybe. The belt grooves are lining up a lot better than they were before. I don't really want to tighten it up because I got to adjust it yet, but be able to put my power steering hose on. Return hose, I've got a fitting for the return hose. I just got to get some cut. Power steering hose should be here a couple days. Mount the fan. Unfortunately, the only thing I have right now is a flex fan. I'm not a huge fan of those. But that's what I have available currently. I will be swapping this out for a regular 7-bladed fan. Just, I don't know, just don't like flex fans. Don't know why. They're noisy, I think. Yep, that'll do her. I don't know, we might need more of a spacer once we get the Radiator in there. Oh, sucker's really close to it. Yeah, I got all kinds of spacers from the circle track days. Look at that ugly thing. That is, keep crap out of the carburetor cover. That is not staying on there. Heck, I think we may have gotten everything we need for this project. That's a first. I had to spend 15 minutes looking through different totes. I've got the little rubber saddles for the Radiator to sit in. Probably could use some new ones, but they'll be fine. One Radiator original Radiator. Well, that's gonna mount up actually pretty nice right there. After bending that with the motor dropping on it, I was a little nervous, but I think she's going to be okay. I took about an inch off of that radiator hose on this side, just because I know it was a cut to fit. Some trimming necessary, I guess. We'll see if we have to do some down at the water thermostat housing too. I actually will change that because I hate that tab hanging up there. I just ran out of this right size ones. What's left here is we're going to mount the fan shroud to the radiator hold down. Looks like I'm probably going to need a different spacer plate. That radiator hold down will go right in there, as soon as I get these 3 screws. But we're gonna call her quits for tonight. We're getting closer and closer. Pretty soon we'll have fenders on. We got to run some wires, get some belts to fit. A lot of little things as you work on these projects. When you can only work on them for a couple hours at a time, gets time consuming, but it's well worth it. Thanks for following along. We appreciate all the support we're getting on the channel. Never forget, drive your shit. We'll see ya.